Christian parenting.
The biggest never that we hear in the homeschool world is the, oh, I could never homeschool. And so in general, that is the biggest never. But I'm assuming that you have jumped that hurdle, you have conquered that, you are homeschooling, and if you have not, listen to this episode. There's tons more that you can listen to if you're wondering, if can I homeschool? I said I never would homeschool. But today's episode, we're going to dig in a little bit deeper, and we're going to talk about the I would never do blank in my homeschool. And now you might be faced with, ooh, I'm about to eat some crow, even if nobody knew that this is one of your nevers, and you're thinking, maybe that's what I need to do, or you're just maybe stuck, and you're thinking about next homeschool year, and you're like, what can I do? How can I get out of it? I have these list of nevers, and I'm not talking about compromising some of that solid foundation. Absolutely not. I want you to keep that in place, and we'll talk about that in a moment too. But let's discover here a little bit about what happens when you say never, but then you say, all right, because I've done this too. And at this point, now that I am near the end of the homeschool, I'm like, oh, I have a very specific example from this homeschool year. So never say never in homeschool. Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast. I am Lee Nguyen, and I'm glad that you are here for today's episode. I am the founder, the creator, and the voice and the writer behind the emails and all the things for Little by Little Homeschool. And it has just been such a journey. Homeschool has been such a blessing for my family, and that's why I do what I do. There are courses, there is tons of free content. I'm on social media, as well as hosting an in-person conference. There's just a lot that I've just put out there because I was so thankful for those that have went ahead of me to encourage me, and I am here to encourage you wherever you are in your journey of homeschooling. This is a very exciting week for Little by Little Homeschool. We are announcing the details of the 2026 in-person conference in Syracuse, New York. Now today, the first email went out divulging the new venue that we will be using as well as the date of the conference. There's more information we're going to leak out every day or so here this week with a little bit more information, and we will conclude with sharing the speakers for this year. It's all so good. I'm so excited. If you want more information and you want to be the first in the know, you're going to need to be on the email list. That's where all this stuff is, everything. You're going to find out about that first, then you can go to the website as well. But if you want to get onto that email list, go ahead and check the link in the show notes. Tickets will officially go on sale 1 week from now on Monday, May 11th, which is the day after Mother's Day. So maybe you can tell your husband, well, you're off the hook. You don't have to go out and get me a present. Maybe just the day after, grab me a ticket for Little by Little Homeschool Conference. You can even sign him up to the email or just forward it on to him. But go ahead and get onto that email list for all those details. It's just an exciting week, and we cannot wait to tell you everything, and then also cannot wait for the conference later in the year. Now, as far as never say never in homeschool, I want to tell you that I am preaching to myself in this episode after eating much humble pie over the years. Also, I want to lay this foundation and say I am a big proponent of having convictions, and I want you to base this episode on that foundation, having that biblical worldview, having those not just ambiguous morals and values, but having the Bible as the center. That is the foundation point. There's a lot of things that are out there. It's does it really matter if you do a co-op or not? Obviously, if it's a satanic co-op, that's going to be a no-go, right? So there are some lines not to cross. But there are lines, there really isn't a line. It's just what is going to be best for your family right now in this season. So I'm a big proponent of having those convictions, sticking to those solid convictions, but then having an open hand, being okay, I'm going to hold some of these parts a little bit more loosely, because if you've been homeschooling for, I would say, at least a year or two, you start to notice that seasons change. Obviously, the actual physical seasons change. We have the spring, summer, fall, and winter. But our kids change, and the dynamics change. And hopefully, you as well. You are growing in wisdom, you're growing in sanctification, you're growing in knowledge and confidence when it comes to homeschool. And when I talk about never say never, I want you just to do what is best for your family as a whole, your children individually in this season. and just holding those plans a little bit loosely again, going back, sticking to those convictions. Some of those, no, we aren't going to even budge. We have our hands in a fist, and no, it is not going to change. But some of those, let's just have an open hand and be open to something possibly a little bit different and something that's going to serve our family best in this coming season. And you might say, well, I would never do that. And then you do it for 1 year, and then you can go back to saying, okay, we did it. It was good then, or maybe it wasn't good. You found out, okay, maybe I need to stick with never say never, or never. I need to stick with the never, not to do that. But sometimes we don't know until we actually try it. I want to give you my most recent example of this. And I've kind of gone back and forth, like, do I actually mention the curriculum or not? And so at this point, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to. Sorry. If you want to send me a message or an email to find out specifically, then that's fine with me. But I decided, like, okay, I just want to keep it because it's not necessarily about this one curriculum. It could be, I wanted to speak in generalities about it so that you can then use this situation to apply to yourself. Now, my kids, so my oldest two have graduated and the youngest is graduating here. We have a graduation party in about a month. So he has been all the way through homeschool. And when we started homeschooling then would have been 15 years ago. And there was a curriculum that came out since then. My kids they were all older and the curriculum started with just the younger ages. And so it wasn't necessarily available for them to use, especially the older two. I don't think that this company had come out with their older curriculum for like middle school and high school until after my older two were done. And English and language arts has just been something I've been piecing together. And there was just a couple of, there's always going to be gaps, but there was just a couple of things that I was like, I really want to help to make some connections with him for his final year, knowing what field that he's possibly going to go into and pursue. And I was like, I think that these would be very helpful to him be a little bit stronger in. And so as I was exploring some different language arts programs last summer, I settled on this curriculum that had come out, and I was a little wary from it because it's not necessarily a biblical worldview as I would consider it a biblical worldview. And I was like, okay, well, we'll keep our eyes out. He knows to notice things and everything. But I was like, I feel like just the way that it's set up and everything, I feel like it might be good for him. So I went ahead and purchased it. We started going through it, and I ate some humble pie because I was like, okay, this is working really well for him. This is really helping to support the couple of other programs and the things that we have done, especially in his 9th through 11th grade years. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of filling in some of those crevices, and I'm seeing him become more confident in certain areas when it comes to the language arts. And he said to me, just maybe, I guess it was a month ago or so, he was kind of like, I don't want to do this writing assignment, and was kind of pushing back a little bit. And I stood firm. I stood my ground, and I was like, okay, well, whatever. Walked away. It's not a battle to fight. He knows that this is his assignment. This is what he knows. This is what he needs to do. And he just was voicing to me how he wasn't excited about it. I think it was that same day he said to me, Mom, first he apologized. I'm sorry for not having good attitude. I'm sorry for pushing back on it. I just didn't want to do it. But I want to tell you that this program, this curriculum, has really helped me with, and he had stated some specific areas. And those were the areas that I was feeling like he was a little bit weak in. And I was like, wow, okay. So this curriculum that I said I would never use was the solution to kind of fill in some of those gaps and to be able to tie things together and things. He's like, what I was doing in this other program didn't quite make sense, but then when it was in this and the way they worded it and the way they tied it into this other part, it all makes sense. And I said to him, I feel like you're a stronger writer now. I feel like you understand sentence structure. You understand these things a bit better now. He's like, yeah, I really do. I was like, perfect. This is great. So it ended up working out for us. Sometimes it doesn't, but I wanted to give you that example that I had to say, okay, I'm going to hold this a little bit loosely. We didn't find any red flags or in it that we were doing, and everything was fine. We talked about the worldview that the curriculum was coming from, and so he knew that. And so some of maybe the writing options, I was like, well, they're coming at this like a little bit as a moralistic standard as opposed to what the Bible actually says. And so then he would do the writing assignment and pull in actual Bible verses and support that. So that's my story of my most recent, never say never and eat some humble pie, and how it actually worked out. Again, many times the never is to be stuck with. Maybe this exact curriculum, or maybe you're kind of thinking it might work, but my kids aren't strong enough theologically, and there might be something that's in there that's a red flag, and I'm not quite sure. So again, remember, my son was 17 when we started this, and so we've done a lot of worldview and a lot of things. So I was not worried about that at all. But you might have a 7-year-old and might be a little bit more concerned. So again, stick with your convictions there, and many times, that never, maybe we do need to stick with for the long term. Again, let's go back to the extreme example of the satanic co-op. That's going to be a no-go. That's always going to be a never. But as you think ahead to the next homeschool year, if you're thinking about curriculum, I did do an episode a couple weeks or a month or so ago back about curriculum and picking that and everything. But as you're thinking ahead for the next homeschool year, and then even also how you're going to spend the summer, reevaluate and be open to possibly something new, something different for the next homeschool year. And just because you decide to make a change, maybe try one of those nevers, doesn't mean that you are stuck with it forever, that it is something that you will always be doing. Because hopefully that never works out, at least maybe for that year, and it isn't something that's a complete bomb. And again, sometimes we might need to try and might say, oh, this seems to be working for everybody else, and I always said I would never do it. Let me try it. And it does not go well. Well, guess what? Stick to that conviction that that's great for everybody else, but it's not working for us. So think about next homeschool year, as I'm going to go here and tell you about, what to do, how to reevaluate and stuff. And also this summer, be open, reevaluate what is going to be best for our family this coming homeschool year. So how do you know if a never needs to be reevaluated? Take a look at what you're doing, and if it isn't working, maybe explore some of those possible nevers. Those curriculums that you're like, I don't think that's going to work, or that might be a little bit too hard, or that might be too easy. It might be an option for you for that next homeschool year. It might just, again, be for it, like my example. It might just be something that language arts that just kind of pulls things together in a different way and really helps some of those connections be made in their brain. So if what you are doing is not working, maybe evaluate, and the options that you say, I'm totally open to these options. Obviously, explore those options first. But if you exhaust those and none of them is going to be what's going to be best for your family the next homeschool year, then open things up. Hold your hands out and say, okay, let's explore something a little bit more, just like I did last summer. So here are the steps for evaluating some of those nevers and saying, is this the time to try this out and to try plugging it in? First is to pray. Lord, give me the wisdom. Is there something out that I've been ignoring? Sometimes there's things we don't know about, but is there something that I've been saying I would never do that, but it actually is the solution? Let me know. And then watch for some of those God connections where maybe a friend brings up this exact solution, or she's just talking about herself, or somewhere maybe at church or in a book or something, just these random little connections, and just say, okay, all right, so I'm kind of seeing this a little bit more, or your heart's being softened. And then step 2 would be to explore that never. Do some of your own research, just on your own. You don't need to tell anybody that you're doing. Read some reviews. Say it's a curriculum. Read some reviews, watch some videos, look at some of the samples. Do research on it and explore. See if it is a possibility for you. Step 3 would be to pray again. Now that you're armed with some information, you have maybe some reviews, you watch YouTube videos, you've looked at the inside of, say, the curriculum, and you're like, okay, I'm ready to maybe pursue this a little bit more. It wasn't completely knocked out from my exploration and research. So pray again. Talk to your husband. Now, he might be kind of like my husband, didn't know all the ins and outs and the details, and I would sit down and say, okay, this is something that I'm thinking about doing. This is why I've not done it, but this is what I've learned. What are your thoughts and your insights? Because guess what? He has a front row seat to you and your homeschool and your kids, so he might have some great insight. talk to a trusted homeschool friend, someone who maybe sees things the same way, or she could see things completely different than you, and just say, look, this is the situation I'm in. What are your thoughts? And it doesn't mean you have to go with what her thoughts are. She might say, oh, I would never, again, because that's her never. You are in a different situation. And then ask her to pray for you, though. Whether you see eye to eye on it or not, ask her to pray for you. Step 4, how about you just try it out? Imagine that. You say, so this was me. Last summer, I was just praying, Lord, I'm just feeling like there's something missing here. I really want to give him there's just some certain things that I'm just concerned about with him with language arts that we just kind of missing, and some connections I want him to be able to make, and just to make him stronger in certain areas. Show me some curriculum. And I kind of started looking for connections and of where maybe there might be, I don't want to say little hints, but just like a little okay, all right, I'm a little bit open to that. And then I did a ton of research on it. And then I prayed again. And at this point, I didn't necessarily talk to my husband. I'm sorry, I skipped that step. I didn't talk to any homeschool friends. Oh, sorry, I'm not following my own advice. But then I decided to give it a try and ordered it. And we did it. And I was open to the fact that if we started it, and in the first couple weeks, first month or two, it just was, maybe there was red flags, or just was things that it was, my original never was actually the right answer, then I was more than open to just putting it aside. But it was going well. And so we continued. We continued to do it day after day after day. And then come this spring, I get some feedback from him, and it was the perfect solution. So before we close out, let me give you some examples of some nevers that you might have said or might be saying right now that might be something for you to explore and to research and to pray on for this during this summer as you prepare for next homeschool year. Things like co-ops. Oh, I would never do a co-op, or I would never do a co-op like that. How about sports? Oh, we don't do sports. We would never play sports. We want our kids always home. Or I would never do this certain curriculum, or I would never put my kid on a computer and let them do online learning. Or I would never allow my teen to take any type of courses at the local community college. So those are some examples. And you might say, I would never do any of those things, and you stick with it, and that is perfect for your family. Friend, stick with it. But I wonder if maybe one of those is something that you're like, I was kind of thinking about that. Go ahead and explore it a little bit more. Again, there's a lot of information out there, but I do have podcasts probably about most of these different topics. So you can go ahead and search back, and hopefully those will help you out as well. But as I conclude, let me just tell you that homeschool is a journey. It is a time of growth. It is a time of change. How we start off is not often how we end up. And at some point, most of us will face this question of, well, I said I would never do that, but it might be the best solution for right now. And so I want to encourage you to use those couple of steps and see if it is the best solution for your family going into the next homeschool year. Before I close out, if you are saying, well, I would love to attend Little by Little Homeschool Conference, we'd love to have you. Make sure you get on that email list. Details will be coming first through that, then on the website, and then I will also mention it here on the podcast. Social media is typically the last place that you find out that kind of information. So get on that email list, and it's going to be a good week. Check your inbox each day for the next latest announcement of what we're sharing.